Hey, what is up guys? My name is Alano, and welcome to the third episode at my attempt at recreating Super Mario Bros. In Game Maker Studio. In today's video, we're going to be creating the first level of the game using tilesets, and we're also going to set up the collisions for the whole level using the object wall we already have. But before I go ahead into the topic, there's actually a slight bug I've found at the end of last episode, and I'd like to fix it with you guys. If you've been following along last episode, we added the sprites to the player object. And now, by doing so, we actually created this problem. The player now teleports. Obviously, we do not want this to happen, and the only way to get out of this is by jump teleporting or something. And the cause of this problem is actually pretty simple. It actually has to do with collision masks and the way I calculate my collisions. So let me open up the script here, and let's say the walk sprite for Mario. Let's go into the actual image indexes. Now, GameMaker automatically creates a collision mask depending on what image you feed it. So for instance, this sprite here is going to have a collision mask of this size. So if we go ahead and change it, the collision mask is also going to change. Now it's going to be this size. Simply put, GameMaker checks for the furthest most pixel on the left, right, top, and bottom, and uses them to dictate the actual size of the final collision mask. If we go ahead in my script here, you can see that I use a while loop to check for a number of pixels in front or behind of the player for argument I, which is either the object wall or any other argument we pass in or object we want to collide to. And if there's a collision, well, we move the player in that direction until we hit the wall. That being said, the code here will always check for collisions depending on the mask of the sprite we are using. So for instance, let's start with this sprite here. The collision, the mask ends here. Say there's a wall about here, let's say 3 pixels in front. Well, the object is now going to move until it collides with the wall. Now the wall is right here. We are still moving, so the sprite animates. We change subimage. Now the wall is still here, but there's a 1 pixel gap in between. This means that, again, the code does its thing and the sprite moves forward. Now the wall is here. Check what happens. The sprite is now inside the wall. And because of that, well, this code right here, when you change direction, now makes it so that you teleport to the nearest wall in front of you. Now, rest assured, the fix is actually pretty simple than one might think. You just have to change the collision mask of the sprite. So let's go ahead and do just that. First, go ahead in the sprite you want to change the collision masks to, and hit Modify Mask. See, like I said, it checks for it automatically. We want the full image, so we want to check for collisions inside, well, not inside, but at the borders of the full 16 by 16 pixel sprite. And we want to do this for all of our sprites. Full image, for the jump one, full image also, although this one is already full image. And lastly, for the stop sprite. And there you have it. If I go ahead and recompile the game, you'll see that it is now fixed. There you go. I hit the wall, and voila! Everything works. No more teleportation. And we even stop animating when we hit the wall. Great! Now that this is out of the way, let's go ahead to the main topic of this video, creating the first level. First off, we're going to go into backgrounds and actually create a background. Let's call it tiles 1, because it's the first tile set we're going to use and probably the only one also. So we're going to load it. There it is. We want also to use it as a tile set, so don't forget to check this here. The tile width and tile height are 16 by 16. No need to set the offset as well as the separation. And that's it for the tile set. Next, we go into the room. So let's go into our room test. Well, you know what? Let's change its name. It's going to be room 1, 1. First world, first level. Height is going to be the same, it's not going to change, but the width is going to change. Now I'm going to use this here as a reference. I will link this image in the video's description so you can follow along. Okay, so the width is actually going to be 3,392 pixels. That's the width of the actual level in the game. Pretty sweet. So let's go ahead and delete all those. We're going to move this further away so we can change its position later. And before, you know what, before I go ahead and do this, let's just change the sprite for the wall. Since we're not going to use it anymore and we're simply going to check for collisions with it, let's change its color to be red and set its opacity about 120, yeah, by half. And in the object for the wall, we want it to be non-visible so that when the game starts, we don't see it. Okay, back to the room. We go into tiles, we select the tile sets we want to use. Here it is, this one right here. And we go ahead and select the tile we want to use and just paint it. It's as simple as that. So I'm going to go ahead and create the world. I'll fast forward this just a bit. Like I said, I'll be using this reference image here. I want to place the floor, I want to place the hills, the bushes, the clouds, as well as these blocks right here. I also want to do the pole at the end, as well as the castle. What I don't want to do is the blocks right here. So this one, these, all these, since we are going to interact with them later on in the game, we're going to make them as separate objects. So let me do just that, and I'll see you later. And we are back. Now that the tiles are all set up, we need to actually make sure the player object collides with either the floor or the pipes or the staircases. So for that, we go into our object, we select the object wall, which is our collision object, and we simply place it down and stretch it to the desired length we want it to be. So for instance, we put it here on the floor. I guess we could also put one here just to make sure the player doesn't go outside of the room. After that, we place some on the pipes. Obviously you don't want any here because you want the player to actually fall down, and later on we'll have an object that checks for to see if the player actually falls down into the pit and makes him die later on. We also want some over here, so that's pretty good, yeah. And no need to put any on the flagpole because later on we'll create a separate object that is going to check for the completion of the level. So just go ahead and place all your collisions at their rightful place, and I'll see you then. Alright, now that all the wall objects have been placed, we can go back to the starting point and actually let's snap the grid to be to 8 pixels. And we want to move Mario to his starting point. So say he starts about at that position right there. Now, we could compile the game now and try it out, but there's going to be a slight problem, and the problem is that there's no views in the room. So when we start the game, GameMaker is actually going to show us the whole room, and obviously we do not want that. So in the Views tab, you want to enable the use of views. You also want to make sure it is visible when the room starts. You want it to be 256 pixels wide by 240 pixels high. We also want to set the port to be the same, just like so. And finally, there's no need to set up a object for the following of the view, since we are manually going to move the view in the room depending on the player position inside the player object. So let's do just that right now. Let's go ahead into the player object, and inside its step event at the bottom, but just before collision, this is where we are going to write the view controls. So first we want to check if the player is moving right and its position is actually greater than the center of the view. We want to move the view to the right at the same speed the player is going. So if x is greater than the view's x position, plus we want view width view divided by 2, so half the size of the view. And we also want to check the direction the player is going in. So if sine HSP is equal to 1, meaning that we are going right, then we go ahead and say view x view plus equals HSP. What did I do wrong here? I got 1, 2, 3 brackets. 1, 2, 3. I was missing a bracket. There we go. Then we do the same thing for if we're going left. So if we are hitting the left of the view, so if we're precisely at the x view's position, then we need to stop the player movement and set its HSP to 0. So if x actually is smaller this time or equal to view x view, and we're going to check 8 pixels to the right of that, just because it's half the size of the sprite we're using and the origin is in the middle, and we are going left, so sine HSP is equal to -1. Then set the HSP to be equal to 0. As simple as that. All my brackets are good. Okay, so let's go ahead and check this out. As you can see, the floor is working, so collisions here are great. When we move right, the view follows us, and we cannot go outside of the view. Great. Let's check. The pipes also work, so we can go ahead and play the level. Now, of course, there's not any blocks we can break, or power-ups, or enemies, but these will come, don't worry. Next episode, I'm not sure what we're going to do. Probably check for the first enemy, or maybe gamepad inputs, because this game is easier to play with a gamepad, or actually more fun in my opinion. So yeah, there we go. We finished the level. Thanks a lot for watching. If you like this episode, don't forget to leave a like below. Also, if you have any problems, please leave a comment and I'll make sure to fix the problem with you guys, or even highlight it in a future episode. Don't forget to check out my Patreon if you want to support me, and also subscribe to my channel. So thanks a lot for watching. See you next time.